Hello everybody and welcome to a special Bazaar video here today. So the Bazaar is going to be releasing Season 1 on April 2nd, featuring Mac and a slew of other additions. One of these additions is a new expansion for Dooley, and I was reached out to and I was asked if I would be the one to show these cards off. Before I get into it, I want to give the disclaimer that I have voiced displeasure with the monetization of the pack systems. So the irony of this video is not lost on me. And if you want to see my full thoughts on what I don't like about it, there is a link in the description. However, I was assured that there are big changes coming in Season 1 in regards to monetization. So there's that. But either way, I personally am going to be waiting to see what those changes are before I commit to even playing the game in Season 1 and using any of the cards that I'm about to show you. With that all out of the way, I am extremely interested in card design and evaluating cards as a whole. People who watch my channel know that that's just kind of where I like to play around. So this was an opportunity that I've kind of always wanted to be a part of for a game, any game. Like, card reveal season in like trading card games has always really appealed to me. I wanted to be a part of this, and I was kind of hoping that this was the start of a great, healthier chapter for the Bazaar. We will just have to see. And that this is not, like, my final hurrah. But, you know, the changes that come in Season 1 will determine that. That out of the way, let's get to the part that people who are not subscribed to my channel actually came here for. Alright, so I think it makes sense to start with the 5 bugs at the very core of this set. I'll just show them kind of all at the same time here, but then we're going to go in and explain them one by one. So first, we have the Blue Beetle. Freeze one item for 0.5 seconds. When an item to the right of this poisons, charge this 1 second. So this is going to be something we'll see on all the cards, and there is an important note about that bottom line of text, because that's kind of a trigger we haven't seen yet. Like, when the right thing does a specific action, this will apply to passives. For example, if it were to say, when the item to the right of this hastes, it would work with metronome, even though that's like a passive item. So that opens up things a little bit. Keep that in mind as we look at these. But Blue Beetle, first glance, I was like, it seems not that good. However, I did learn that this upgrade path goes from bronze 1 target up to diamond 4 targets, which, as you see as how these cards kind of progress, that's going to become a little bit more appealing. So it is 4 instances of freeze at diamond. They are not very big freezes, but if you're looking for something to have a lot of freeze triggers, that is quite relevant. So this is a small friend available at bronze that does that. Next up, we have the Green Wasp, which is a 6-second poison 4 small friend. And when an item to the left of this freezes, charge this 1 second. You might see where we're getting with this. So we have that, and then you have whenever the item to the right slows, charge this 1 second. So, therefore, if you have the Blue Beetle on the left of this, goes off, it freezes 4 times at diamond. That'll charge this 4 seconds. Obviously, that's a dreamy scenario, but this is kind of like, this has the potential to be the fastest poison trigger in Dooley's kit, which makes things like poison skills or maybe even gamma ray like a little bit more appealing on him, because right now, it just doesn't feel very appealing to put it on an 8-second monitor lizard like a poison buff or something like that, and Chem Snail is, you know, is Chem Snail. However, speaking of Chem Snail, we also have a slow item in Black Spider, which, you know, I'm not going to bury the lead at all here. This is my baby, and I don't know why, but of the set, I'm most excited for this Black Spider, which is 6 seconds, slow 1 item for 1 second, and as this upgrades, the upgrade path for the last one is just like, it gains poison, as you would kind of expect. This one gains slow targets, so it is going to go up to slow 4 items for 1 second. making it kind of like a little mini small friend dock lines for Dooley. So he has that effect going on. And when you poison with the item on the left, charge this 1 second. When the item to the right of this burns, charge this 1 second. So the use case for those generally, like I could see you putting like soldering iron on the right of the soldering gun, on the right of this, because that's looking for a friend adjacency anyways. So that could be like 3 sources of burn. You could put it on the left of like an ignition core, something like that as far as placement goes. Or obviously, you probably guessed it, the next bug. But the thing about this that I think makes me like it so much is Dooley has so many cards in his set for like this slow archetype that, let's be honest, doesn't exist for Dooley. If you want to make a slow build work for Dooley, you have to get cards from other characters, and Black Spider is the first card in his base set that actually feels like it could put out a respectable amount of slow triggers for like a Pylon, or for Hamlet, Justice for Hamlet, potentially finally. You could play Black Spider, you could go Black Spider, Soldering Gun, Hamlet, something like that. 1, 2, 3. That's, a logical way to play this, but just having 4 slow targets, you could go to Curio, upgrade the slow on this, get it up to 2 seconds. Dooley has a mini dock lines. This item looks to be one of the scarier ones to me. But also I really like it because I've literally been asking for a slow activator for Dooley that actually makes sense to play. So next we have Red Firefly. So over the course of this, I showed these cards to a select number of like other content creators and top players. Most of them seemed most excited about the Red Firefly, and I can definitely see why, and I agree, and I think this thing looks pretty strong too. Small Brown's friend, believe it or not, 6 seconds, burn 4. When it upgrades, it just gains burn. When the item to the left slows, charge this 1 second. When the item to the right of this hastes, charge this 1 second. So where that gets exciting is in 2 ways. Like I said, like a metronome does count, even though it's kind of a passive effect, and there's some areas where there's like gray area there. I asked, it would work with metronome, and it also counts every instance of the haste as you would want. So my first thought was, if you put a Red Firefly on the left of like a solar farm, which wants you to cast burn a lot, and then also haste a lot of items, Red Firefly just right by a solar farm is an incredible source of haste generation, and it's really, really good. I see this one being extremely playable, especially in the early game. This one, since it cares about haste triggers, can slot right by like a companion core very easily. Obviously, I think that Black Spider and Firefly together, these two, I suspect we're going to be seeing these a lot. These two on the field right by each other. But we also have the Yellow Mantis, which, until I learned that this gained haste targets on level up, I thought might be the worst card in Dooley's entire pool. Haste 1 item for 1 second. When the item to the left of this burns, charge this 1 second. So there's not like that many super fast burn triggers, and it's only looking for 1 set of triggers. So the soldering gun, again, situation seems to be like a good potential pickup here. But I don't know. Yeah, it's not a lot of great super fast burn activators in Dooley's base kit. For this to really be more than worst Aiden. Like, there's first Aiden, this would be worst Aiden. However, I think the saving grace of this is that as it levels up, it goes up to haste 4 items for 1 second. Same kind of situation. If you go to Curio, you get haste boots, haste 4 items for 2 seconds. It starts to be a little bit more enticing. Though I'll admit, I think that it's probably on purpose. The 2 bugs on the end, the Blue Beetle and the Yellow Mantis, they feel like you could leave them off. They're like not integral to the core of it. These are just, do you need more disruption? Do you need haste? Like that kind of thing. the important thing about Blue Beetle is that it does not care what size the things you freeze are. That's a really big thing. So that is generally the bugs here. As I talked to other content creators, some thoughts I got on these bugs were as follows. So I talked to 610, who is very much a Dooley main through and through. And on the topic of these bugs, mentioned that they are very clearly great drill activators. Like, we obviously don't know if drill is going to be untouched in the next patch, but something that is just looking for lots of triggers of status effects is going to really like this. Like a power drill, God help us all, these are going to be pretty good power drill food. I also talked to Raresh, who thought that the Fire Beetle was the best, could be good to put it right by a bomb squad. I think that's a good call. That was before we knew whether or not it looked for passive triggers or anything like that, because you can easily put any of these by, like an enchanted Robo Factory is what Raresh brought up, and, you know, it's going to be seeing a lot of triggers of whatever that thing is. Like, that could even make you find a fast poison trigger for the Blue Beetle, you know? When the item to the right of this poisons, charge this a second. If your Robot Factory is poison enchanted, there's going to be a lot of poison triggers. Obviously, that's a very dreamy scenario, but yeah, there's that. My friend Rhapsody mentioned that you could actually use Cryosphere, maybe, for the first time, like, ever, with the Green Wasp. I think that that's actually an interesting note as well. Green Wasp also likes to be slotted by, if you get lucky, you get like an Illusoray or something. There may be a way to get that a little bit easier coming up, but it gives you a way to maybe play that and make a little bit more sense. You could go Green Wasp with an Illusoray on the right, a Friend or a Ray on the other side of that, and you could actually use a Gamma Ray, the Poison Scaling Ray, in that situation. It's kind of interesting. Like, it's a real use case for a couple items that, in my opinion, up to this point, have kind of lost their use cases. On the topic of these bugs, Sunny said that it looked like you were handed a Pokemon expansion. I could agree with that. I don't know. I like these guys. I think they're quite cute. And Raren hit me with the ever insightful, the bug stuff is cool. And I do agree with that. I think the bug stuff is cool. I think the bug stuff is cool. But generally, the final thoughts on these, I'm taking longer on these than I will on the others because this is half the set. But the final thoughts is these are 5 small bronze friends that's extremely noteworthy for shop reasons. Your small shop in the early game is going to have a massive influx of these. So, like, the fact that a couple of them are quite good, or at least upgrade quite well, that's helpful. But there's also a little bit of dilution in there. You're not going to really want to play Yellow Mantis early. I doubt I doubt that you're going to want to play Blue Beetle early. Maybe not even Green Wasp, you know. So it's a little bit hit or miss on what it does to, like, your small shop. Your small shop, your friend shop. Very noteworthy because there's 5 and they have all exactly the same tags and stuff. So that's my final thought with that. Next up, we have what seems to be the intended payoff for these bugs. What I do like about those bugs is you can clearly see how they're supposed to fit together. However, I do think that they're playable outside of, like, Companion Core and outside of, like, Tribal Bug or anything like that. But this is the logical, technical payoff for those bugs, and it is Dooltron, who is a whopping 30-second cooldown, deal 1,000 damage. Whenever you haste, slow, poison, freeze, or burn, charge this 1 second. And whenever you use a friend, shield 50. So my first instinct is, like, twofold. 1, man, that's a really big drill. 2, it's a lot like a Slumbering Primordial, which Vanessa got in the last expansion pack. However, I do think that Dooley has better ways to utilize a Slumbering Primordial type shell of a character. And yeah, the fact that it is a large friend, Dooley cares about that. But additionally, whenever you use a friend shield, stands out to me as the Dark Horse text on this card. I think that this opens up some weird, interesting lines. Like, I'll get to the other stuff. Obviously, you can... Any trigger that you would play to, like, activate a drill is logically what you would do for the top, like, the middle line there whenever you haste slow, etc. But whenever you use a friend shield, there is a certain friend who really likes that line of text, and that is our friend Armadillo, who there was multiple times where we've seen a lot, but we haven't seen for a while since Dooley lost duct tape, RIP. So they're just being a universal whenever you use a friend shield on your board. Pretty compelling line for like a Armadillo. Not to mention you slap any of the enchants listed on this whenever you haste, slow, poison, freeze, or burn. That's a lot of potential hits for an enchant on your Armadillo. It'll go off a lot of times. It'll provide you a lot of one of those charges. You can obviously put it by like a metronome. Again, anything you would do for a drill, you could do here as well, but you could go metronome into, I don't know, Ballista. But obviously you could also use this alongside like a companion core, get a lot of haste that way. DJ Robot if he's unchanged. There's all kinds of ways you could charge this up a lot. The way that this upgrades is very important to note, because I thought this might gain an extra second of charge, because I think that's what Slumbering Primordial does. It might get that by the time it's out or whatever, but as far as I'm aware, the damage goes up by 500 when you use a friend shield 100. And I think that the charge stays the same at Diamond, unless it gets changed. So it's a much slower drill, but it already has the 1,000 damage on it. I think that this is the kind of card where if you get this, like, if you high roll and you get it on day 5, maybe you can make it work quite well. However, I think it will largely need the assistance of our next card. So if you were like me and you thought, okay, the like daisy-chained bugs and then the big Dooltron, it doesn't seem like it really ties together as a logical full payoff. It seems a bit slow. It's probably true until you see the Dooltron Mainframe, of course, which whenever you use a friend, charge the core 1, 2 at Diamond seconds, and haste a large item 1 to 2 at Diamond seconds, and your Dooltron now has the core type. So this means if you have the Dooltron Mainframe out and like any of the bugs, but it could be just any friends, any like fast friends, you know, Race Carl, whatever the heck. Whenever you use a friend, it will charge your Dooltron 2 seconds and haste it probably 2 seconds, you know, a large item. You're probably only going to have one if you're going to have the Dooltron Mainframe, the Dooltron, and like friends to actually charge it. Probably going to be the case, but, you know, an argument for chopping down that major 30% cooldown with like a bulldozer or something too, I suppose. But this seems to make a little bit more sense how they work together. And it's kind of just a cool concept. It is a passive. That's a tough sell for Dooley. It starts at gold or higher only. So, you know, you are going to be trying to assemble Exodia. And there's obviously like a really fun final board that you can find here. But you have 10 slots on the board. You got 5 of them devoted to, you know, the Dooltron Mainframe and Dooltron. And then you got the 5 bugs. That's like theoretically a perfect board if you get all of those to Diamond. That's not going to happen very often. I was a little bit worried when I saw this because I'm not a huge fan of like just this is the correct way to play these cards type sets. But I think that the dreamy scenario of getting it all to line up Exodia style, I don't think it's the main way to look at this stuff. But if you happen to get a gold, you find Dooltron at gold, and you find Dooltron Mainframe at gold, and you kept 5 bugs, and importantly, probably got them to Diamond for them to be worth like a darn, you know. Yeah, I'm sure it'll work. I'm sure it'll work really, really well. But I think that that's going to be a high you'll be chasing for a long time. I think it's better to look at these more in a vacuum. As far as what a few of the other creators said, let me take a look at what I wrote down here. Yes, 610 thought. The first thought was that Dooltron Mainframe, if you high roll and find a Beast of Burden, that Dooltron Mainframe plus Beast of Burden is a disgusting combo. And boy, is it, because if you have, Beast of Burden, and I guess you could have Dooltron too, but like, you have Mainframe, Beast of Burden, a core. Your Beast of Burden is your friend, your core, because it steals the tag, and a large item, so it's charging itself. That is, like, technically Dooltron Mainframe plus Beast of Burden, dual frame, whatever. I mean, yeah, sure, this is shortened for it. At Diamond, that's like a self-infinite. It's pretty wild, but that's going to happen, what, 1 in every 2,000 games? It's not... But that's a fun idea. That's a very fun idea. Other than that, as far as Dooltron, this plus the Mainframe, Rhapsody mentioned that Cryosphere, again, like, big on the Cryosphere, that Rhapsody. Now, but genuinely, I think it's actually a real thought. Dooltron Mainframe plus Cryosphere is really compelling, too. Your Dooltron gains the core type. Cryosphere freezes every non-core item, so that gives you a large amount of freeze triggers to charge up the Dooltron, while also dodging the Dooltron, or you could just not have the Mainframe at all, or whatever, and you could just let it eat the freeze. That with Power Drill, you don't want to get overcapped on charges while it's frozen. With a 30-second item, that's not really a concern. So, there's that. Additionally, mentioning that Pylon is a very, very good pickup with Dooltron, and I would agree with that as well, because you're getting multiple triggers at once. I'm sure you could find a way to use that with the Spider and some other stuff. Next up, we have, I was not looking forward to pronouncing this. There's Zword and, Zhield? Zword and Zhield, which are both, medium tech items. Zword is a weapon. Zword says it's an 8-second cooldown, do 75 damage, burn 12. This ramps up to something like 20 burn and, a bit more damage. Adjacent items have their cooldown reduced by 10%, and this has a multicast if you have a large item. So those two things on the bottom, they are fixed values as far as I'm aware, unless, again, they get changed by the time the pack comes out, and it gains some kind of cooldown reduction as it levels up, which, not to bury the lead, but I think would make them a little bit more playable, but we will see. So I think the thought would be that you put this by your Dooltron. Like, these are present in the artwork for Dooltron. So, like, it feels like it's supposed to go with it. I think it seems a little bit slow for that, to put this Zword by that. But, we'll talk about Zhield first. Shield 75, freeze an item for 1 second. Any item, doesn't care about size. That does upgrade to 3 seconds. The shield upgrades as well. The freeze upgrades to 3 seconds. Adjacent items have their cooldowns reduced by 10%. This has a multicast if you have a large item. It doesn't need to be by the large item. It has a multicast if you have a large item. Of the two, this one seems way more playable as you upgrade it to higher tiers. It seems way more playable to me than the Zword, but maybe I'm wrong. 20 burn twice is nothing to scoff at if you find it. Well, I guess it wouldn't be 20 if you find it early. 12 burn twice at silver is nothing to scoff at if you have a large item already. Dooley doesn't play a lot of large items early, though, so I don't know. But on the topic of these, the creators mentioned, it was 610 mentioned, and I agree, this is a great back-of-the-box quote, Zword and Zhield seem as hard to play as they are to pronounce. And I agree. It seems difficult to find a good use case for them. The best I could kind of come up with generally seem to be like plonking them down by like a railgun, because these are tech items. Railgun cares about tech items. This could be multicast by those. That is useful. Raresh mentioned if Combat Core gets buffed, these could be playable alongside that. But currently, Combat Core is probably too slow. It cares about fast triggers. But if that card gets changed in a little bit of a way, I could see them being potentially good by that as well. The one that seemed to pop up multiple times, both Raresh and Rhapsody mentioned something that I didn't consider, which is Zhield with Bunker. And I didn't get it at first, but that's because for some reason I thought this had to be adjacent to the large item. No, it doesn't need to be. So that would mean with Bunker, give your shield items multicast and then a Zhield. That would be 3 casts. So 8 seconds, shield whatever, freeze 3 times for 3 seconds, and give the adjacent items a 10% cooldown reduction. I don't know. That's kind of spicy. Like, not that a force field build needs any more help, but like a lot of times you don't have a lot of. It's one of the builds where you have a little bit more real estate on the board than you would expect, because you care mostly just about your force field. So Bunker, Zhield, force field, and something else, like it's a thing. It could work. It could work, but I don't know. These ones seem a little bit trickier to play. But if you found, I think if I find a Zhield later in the game and it's pre-upgraded, like if it's already at gold, I think I could be pretty excited to pick it up. But I don't know. We'll see. And the final card that we have in the pack is Sat-Comm, which seems a little bit more separated from the Dooltron theme. This is more of a general purpose Dooley item, it feels like. And it's going to look kind of familiar. Haste the friend to the right of this for 2 seconds. This starts at bronze. It is 5 seconds. This gains a second of haste each level up, meaning at diamond, it will give you 5 seconds of haste. 5 seconds. You can perma-haste a friend. This is also a tech item, but I think the real kicker is at the start of every day, get a small friend from any hero. And this is really, really fun. This is nice in a couple ways. One, it gives Dooley a little bit of econ potentially. You can find this in the medium shops starting on day 1, and you can start accruing a little bit of extra econ. But it's also fun because it gives Dooley options to get, some of Vanessa's especially small friends. She has a lot of small friends, especially with the new pack I did see. There are some more small friends coming out for Vanessa that Dooley could then pick up. Additionally, this means you could get duplicates of friends that Dooley has. You could get first and second Aiden from Sat-Comm. How likely is that? Whatever. But it is possible. So, it's Fishing Rod, okay? It's Fishing Rod for friends. However, that does not make it a bad card. That makes it a good card. Fishing Rod is a great card to have. It can set up some weird and interesting stuff. It's good econ, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility. But yeah, the fact that it can fish up small friends from any hero is really, really, really fun. The fact that it's not just Dooley items. So on top of that, it is a 5 second, perma-haste on a friend on something that's not the companion core. So like, you have one of those runs where you're not playing companion core, you find a Mamasaur or something. You could actually play Sat-Comm with it, and you could keep your Mamasaur perma-hasted through, that means alone. So that's something. And I like that because it feels like friends are quite insular from just like non-companion core Dooley. It feels like there was kind of like a little bit of an island of friends, and then there's the island of the rest of Dooley. Sat-Comm seems like it's doing a little bit to merge it a little bit more. Not to mention, you could fish up like a jellyfish. You could fish up like, I don't know why you want a jellyfish, but a loser ray is the big one. With the weird niche ray synergies, it becomes a little bit less niche. It counts as a ray. It's very funny. You could potentially pick up like a pet rock, on a weapons Dooley run. You could get pet rock, that kind of thing. There's just some weird niche things that could happen. I like this item a lot. Also worth noting, it will pass along any enchants. So if you have like a fiery Sat-Comm, every friend that you get will also be fiery. And as just a bonus complete random aside, I was also informed that Fishing Rod will be changed to mimic this stat line. So Fishing Rod is going to be 5 seconds, haste an aquatic thing on the right by 2. So they're going to be comparable. They're going to be comparable cards in terms of seconds and haste levels. So there's that. And not much to say from other players on this one for like logical reasons. 610 is just happy that Dooley has econ, and I can agree with that. Like, there's crypto to a very small extent, there's memory card, but yeah, this is like, it's just passive econ, and you could be fishing for something kind of weird and fun as well. So the long and short of it, the new pack, flavor-wise, I love it. It seems like there's a decent amount of effort as well mechanically to kind of weave in friends a little bit more to non-companion core friend-based builds. I think that the bugs are generally a good addition, and I'm excited especially to use like the slow spider, the burn spider. I think I'll probably end up using those a lot. I'm sure there's some wild synergies with some of the others that I haven't seen yet, but I'm very, very excited to use those on non-companion core runs, and it's fun to think that about a friend item. Dooltron seems like a wild potential payoff. It seems really tricky to get full benefit from. It doesn't have any damage ramp scaling, so it's going to be just that flat 1,000 damage. You're going to need a lot of triggers to get it to go off quickly, and by the time you have it all set up, I don't know if 1,000 damage is going to be enough. I think a lot of it comes down to how the enchantments look on it. If the enchantments are like whenever you use a friend style enchantments, do blah, 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 I think it could be good. I doubt that's the case, though. I assume it has just like a normal 10% of the damage, fiery kind of a type. Dooltron Mainframe seems very, very gimmicky, but in the right build, it's going to be very fun, I bet. Rhapsody pointed out that Dooltron and Dooltron Mainframe and Companion Core, all three of those together are really, really good because you're using friends and cores very often. I think that is like a really good package. Obviously, you're going to rely on 2 gold items. Other than that, Zword and Zhield seem very, very niche to be able to utilize, but they are very, very cool. I see Zhield being a good staple, potentially. Just because it doesn't care about what the size of the target is, and it's a 3-second freeze at Diamond. But yeah, just slapping it by a really heavy cooldown item, like, I get that that's probably the main reason you'd want to put it by Dooltron. I don't see that being their real use case for the most part. So, I don't know. I think maybe they could be alright. Sat-Comm, what's not to love? Dooley finally gets his own, like, fishing rod style item, and I think it'll open up a lot of cool different things for him. So, it seems like a nice, well-rounded, half wild, half staple kind of a set. And I'm glad that it isn't just play these all together or else. In fact, I'm not even sure that that's the best way to play these. It might be. But, alas, that is it for the review. So, again, final closing thoughts on just the pack, the pack system as a whole. Again, not a huge fan of it, but I am optimistic based off of what I have been told. I don't have specifics, so we are going to be waiting to see. And yeah, I hope that we are about to enter a more positive time for the Bazaar, because it's a fantastic game, and it'd be a shame if it had this dark cloud over it forever, right? Why voice concerns if you're going to be upset when they fix the problems? So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm waiting to see what happens on whether or not I'm going to play more. Most of you guys are not going to care. I gotta be honest, I'm not making this video for views or anything like that. I'm not making this to get necessarily new subscriptions. I want to just be completely upfront and honest about where I'm at with all of it, because obviously this is a weird tightrope style situation for me, since I've always wanted to do something like this. I love reviewing cards. I love it so much. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the pack system in its current implementation in a couple different ways. Not just the monetization, but also the mechanics of it. But I think that we're going to be tackling monetization. It'd be cool if the mechanics of it get tackled in Season 1. I don't know if that will be the case, but I think tackling monetization of it first would be my hopeful thing, and tackling a little bit of the mechanics of how clunky it is to turn them off and on, and, you know, worry about diluting pools and stuff like that anyways. Because I know that that's what people are going to be coming here to figure out, like, should I turn this on for Dooley if I want to win more? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to have it on, you know, if it is not like the same money restricted kind of situation, then I will have it on, regardless of if it's improving my chances or not. Because I think the Bazaar is at the best when you are playing with what you get, and you have the wild, anything can happen style feeling. And I think that this pack really helps with that. Alas, though, that is that, and that's going to do it here for the Bazaar. If you were not turned off by my whining, my yapping, whatever, I do upload Bazaar every single day right now, and tempo, hopefully, I will continue to do so after Season 1 is done and out, and that would be great. Very excited for Mac. Fantastic game. These cards look very cool. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Sorry to be a bummer. See you next time. Bye-bye.